Afternoon, everybody. This is our second session on question and answer in the flipped learning task, which is ongoing. Let me just repeat and remind that in last 3 days, you have watched several videos, video resources that was shared with you on Derrida and deconstruction. And then you have raised several questions. Yesterday, we have dealt with one concern about is deconstruction a negative term or not, or why there is the way of looking at the concept of deconstruction that it is negative. So what Derrida said in his very famous letter to his friend, a Japanese friend that we have referred, and we have said that there is a problem with language. DE as a grammatical structure, which our minds are conditioned to see that anything that is prefixed with such words becomes negative, or it becomes antonym. And as we have seen, even in this concept also, here that privileging one word over the another word, privileging speech over writing. In that context, it is our minds are conditioned or programmed, if you want to use that word, programmed, the robotic language, to see things in a positive way, in positive terms. And so we always try to read that deconstruction is something negative. And defining is always a problem. As Derrida said, that it is very difficult to define the things there. Okay? Yes, there was one question that was remaining from that. So yes, Chandni, can you ask that question?
Am I audible? Okay. So, in the video defining deconstruction, sir talk about structuralism and deconstruction. So, what is the difference between structural?
Yeah, okay. So the question is, this camera you'll have to. The question is, uh, uh, what is the difference between structuralism and deconstruction, and how we try to see that reference here. Okay? Well, it also is an interesting question, and as we enter into post-structuralism, see the things. We started with structuralism, so let us try to see that how we can differentiate structuralism and post-structuralism or deconstruction, and what are the ways in which it can be divided also. Okay, I will put this page here and try to show you. Let us see if it works properly or not. I will take that mic.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Yes. Okay. Now I think I am audible. Okay. So from this, I hope online students are able to see. There is a little bit low internet. So hello. 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 Yeah. Okay. Barbara Johnson's. And in this, let me make this, enlarge this. Pin up the last screen. Hello. Yeah. I think this sound is okay. Yes. Have you pinned up this full screen? Okay. So Barbara Johnson's, yes, the critical difference, where it says the deconstruction is not synonymous with destruction. That is what we have discussed yesterday. From there we begin this point. It is in fact much closer to the original meaning of the word analysis, very near to analysis. Now, when we see the word analysis, we see that it is a positive word. There is no problem with that. So deconstruction is very near to that positive term, analysis, and the construction of a text does not produce any random doubt or arbitrary subversion, but by the careful teasing out of varying forces of signification within the text. So this is very important to be kept in mind also, this observation that it is not any random way of looking at the thing or subverting. Here it is flipped, okay. But online it will be okay perhaps, yeah. Okay, here it will be flipped. Online it is okay. It is okay, but here you are saying, I don't think we can. If it will change here, then online it will change. Is it changing here? Then online it will get flipped, yeah. Is it? Now flipped. Okay, but then it will be online, it will get flipped if we change in that way. Okay, okay, fine. So then you can remove that pin up. That pin up will not be necessary. Okay, so that point, analysis, the original meaning is to undo something, and this is what it says there. Now, from this, if we move on, we find this interesting observation. In talking about structuralism, here we are coming to our point, structuralism. We discussed how structuralists look for such phenomena, such features in the text as parallels, echoes, reflections, and so on. The effect of doing this, is often to show a unity of purpose within the text. So structuralists are seeing the unity within the text. They are coming narrow down to see that, well, these structures are taking us to the center of something. So their purpose is to show unity in the text. By contrast, the deconstructionist aims to show that the text is at war with itself. Now, this is very important statement. Structuralists, they want to show that there is a unity. Deconstructionist, deconstructionist aims to show that the text is at war with itself. એ જાણે પોતાની સાથે જ યુદ્ધ ચડી, જાણે પોતાને જ તોડી નાખવા માંગે, પોતાનો જ અર્થ નષ્ટ કરવા માંગતી હોય તેમ એ ટેક્સ્ટનું રીડિંગ થાય છે. So now when you are reading, it is not that a reader is breaking the text or deconstructing the text or is trying to read another meaning in the text. Then who is doing that? It is the language itself is doing. That's why that famous statement, language bears within itself the necessity of its own critique. So that is why that is very important. So deconstructionists try to find that the text is at war with itself. It is a house divided. It is a house divided and disunified. It is a house, but that house itself is divided and disunified. The deconstructionist looks for evidence for gaps, breaks, fissures, and discontinuities of all kinds. So, diagram, and here we have this small table rather than a diagram. We have a small table to tell this point here, and it tells a structuralist viewpoint and a post-structuralist way of looking at it. So they will see the parallels, they will see the echo sound, the meaning, and the meaning is echoed. Now see, echo is whatever you speak, the same voice is coming. That is echo. Now deconstructionist means you say something and the another voice comes from them, the opposite voice comes. That is why the word echo is very important. So in structuralism, whatever you want to see, the same thing you listen. Whatever you shout, the same voice you get from the nature. Valley, echo sounds are, people experiment at in valley places. So you shout aloud and the same voice comes. So it means that what you want to see, that you are seeing. What you want to listen, that you are listening. So structuralists are seeing the echo sound, parallels there. Whereas deconstructionists, they see contradictions, paradoxes, breaking in tone, breaking in viewpoints, tense, time, person, attitude, everything is breaking in deconstructionist viewpoint. The same way, a few more a bit slow. This all systems are not powerful enough to work in an online environment. Many times people say that, well, laptop is laptop. What is the difference? Mobile is mobile, but there is a difference. When you work, then you require high-end kind of devices and other things, then it works very well. Otherwise, you have many problems. So even if you have a good internet, but hardware is not good. This hardware is of 2012 year. Now 2012 means bygone ages. In digital time, things change very fast. And just 5 years old things are very old things in digital time. Okay, so this structuralist, reflections, repetitions, symmetry, contrasts, patterns, and here conflicts. They read absences. Yes. They read omissions, absences, linguistic quirks, aporia. See, aporia. Aporia means a gap, lacuna of a kind where the meaning is almost impossible, where a meaning is impossible. It is impossible to have one particular meaning in that. That is a kind of an aporia that people say. And we have many such words which are not translatable, and we are not able to give one particular meaning of those words that are all put into this. The language has the tendency of having gaps in between those things. And finally, to show text disunity, whereas structuralists want to see the unity and coherence of the text, They want to see this unity of the particular text also. So if one event happens, and if you try to connect that event with a lot many other events, you are seeing structures and trying to read the meaning of that event with structuralist point of view. So you are finding a meaning into it, into a particular event. Northrop Frye did it excellently well. Northrop Frye. T.S. Eliot also did it very well. T.S. Eliot, Northrop Frye, Claude Lévi-Strauss did it in the study of anthropology. Jesse Weston in Golden Bough, Jesse Weston, they also did it very well in study of culture and define. So when in the Golden Bough they say that there are so many cultures, but there are rituals are very similar, and they have narrowed down that one particular ritual is very similar among everybody. One particular ritual is very similar, and that ritual is the ritual of carrying something on the shoulders, burial of the dead. So that ritual is practiced in so many things. So you are reading so many things and coming down to the center of the meaning of cultures. Yes, Eliot is telling that if there is a kind of a sexual perversion in the modern times, then it was there in the times of Philomela and Procne also. It was in the time of Apollo and Hyacinth also. It was in the time of Thebes when Tiresias was there. So you are seeing the structures of bad things happening repeatedly. So you don't see that this is isolated case and it is happening only today. You don't see that, but you say this is, it keeps on happening. So I mean, that is structuralist way of looking and trying to find a meaning of that also. A few years back, when we were talking about this structuralism and then moving towards post-structuralism, there was one event that happened in I think let me see if I can very quickly find small video was there. Let me see if I can quickly get that video, then I can share. Let me share the screen with. Okay, so if you are asked this about this, the lyric was like मुझे दुश्मन के बच्चों को पढ़ाना है. The first line is that माँ मुझे उससे बदला लेने जाना, माँ मुझे उससे बदला लेने जाना है, and then it says मुझे दुश्मन के बच्चों को पढ़ाना है. So now when this video came a few years back, this video came. And the lyric, and that if you see, then if you are asked that which country is this where the video is made, can you identify which country this children were from? Which country? Yes, online students, or here also. Yes, Pakistan. Yes, How do you say Pakistan? On what ground? What any visual, any word? Urdu words are common in India also. It was written on the wall, so you say it was written on the wall. So you say it must be Pakistan or any other country also. Muslim types of clothes. Some of the cloths were of so हम कपड़े से पहचाने जाते हैं. That is that so we read through the cloths, the things that this cloths, then it must be the Muslim. But Indian are not wearing those clothes. Indian Muslims also might be wearing those clothes. Yes. So what are the markers? You could say something written on the Urdu, in Urdu. In India also you will find people use Urdu language, write it. Or the cloths which identify as Islamic culture. So you say it must be Pakistan. But why again Pakistan? Why not Afghanistan? Why not Saudi Arabia? Why not any other country? Which also are Muslim countries, or they also use the similar script of writing. Why not that? Why Pakistan? Yes, online also, if anybody, this we can now change. Yes, you just think of it. This lyric, the visuals, and Pakistan, then why Pakistan? Why not any other country? Yes, anybody online? Hmm. Whose enemy? Okay, so that word dushman is for India. That is what we see. So that's why, like, if anything that is Islamic, and if they think of dushman, it is always India only. That is what we think. That is what tells us to read that because there is a huge narrative in India that all the children in Pakistan are taught to be anti-India. Their history books and other things are to be anti-India. So as if we think here that Pakistan only thinks of India only. They don't have any other things to do, but they just have to think about India as dushman number one. So from that we read. Now see, this is what we are opening, the sign of cloths, sign of something written on the wall, which we cannot understand. That also is a sign. Word also is a sign. And we try to see what are the significance of those. Why we give that meaning. Why we give a particular meaning to that sign. That is to be investigated. Once you are in that process, you are thinking like a structuralist. And if you can pose the question to that, you are doing post-structuralism. If you understand this process, your activity, thinking activity, presentations, and everything will be very clear. In the final presentation also, you will be knowing your steps, that this is what I have to do. I have to find the sign. Then why I read it in this way? Why not the other? What is going around that we get that particular significance? Yes, Jignesh, you wanted to say anything? Okay, anybody online? Yeah. Why do you see it as Pakistan, or what do you read in this? The lyrics, common lyrics, repeatedly coming lines, like Mukhda as we call it, was this, that माँ मुझे दुश्मन के बच्चों को पढ़ाना है, दुश्मन से बदला लेने जाना. So you see, there is a paradox. पढ़ाना है, बदला भी लेना है. So what is this? बदला लेना means you want to kill. Then it is not padhana hai. So it means that this song is trying to say that बदला ऐसे लेना है कि उनको पढ़ाना है. That kind of revenge you want to take, that you want to teach them. That is the revenge. It is not revenge means to kill only, but बदला ऐसे लेना है कि उनको पढ़ाना है, दुश्मन के बच्चों को पढ़ाना है, उनसे बदला लेना है. So that is what it tries to say. So now can we imagine that Pakistan children are singing this song about India and they said we want to teach to India? So how that can be materialized when you look at that? Yes, anybody online, any ideas? This event is a bit older now, so it is very difficult to connect that what was the event that this song was written. What was event? That is very difficult, but that event is repeatedly reminded in variety of discourses, normally in the discourse on terrorism. That event we keep on remembering time and again. The event was that in Pakistan, Peshawar, there is a military school. In the military school, there was a terror attack in Pakistan in a military school, and so many children died. So many children died. So the terrorists were taking revenge upon the military of Pakistan, and they targeted their children. In the military school where the children of the military Jawans are studying, that was targeted, and so many children died. And in that school, there is shooting is done in that school, and all these children are remembering their classmates, and some parents are still waiting for their children to come. Friends are waiting, empty benches for the children who died there. So that was the episode. That was an event that there was a terror attack in Pakistan, Peshawar, and military was the target, and they have yes, Pakistan Taliban school was attacked in this, and that was the context. So now who is the Dushman? Dushman is those terrorists. It's not India. This song has nothing to do with India. But see, the kind of things that is in our mind. What is in our mind? We see the world. So if somebody has poisoned our language, our world is poisoned. And we will see somebody as an enemy, even if we have not known that person. We will start looking at somebody as an enemy, even if we don't know. So if there is a cause to hate and we cause, it is okay. But even if it is not a cause, then also we start hating. So that is that hate, morning hate in 1984. રોજ સવારે 2 મિનિટ બધાએ નફરત કરવાની હોય, અને તો એ આપણી સાથે થઈ રહ્યું છે કોઈ ભાષા દ્વારા, સમાચાર દ્વારા લોકો ચર્ચા કરતા, એમાં આ બધું થતું હોય છે. અને and see this some of these films like Bajrangi Bhaijaan or film PK tries to create a narrative against those narratives. So they try to portray good Muslims. Sarfaraz doesn't mean that he's always bad. That Pandit ji will tell. The Pandit ji will tell that Sarfaraz wo nahi aayega because unko aadat hai daga dene ki. Unko matlab Pakistaniyon ko. So then because that female protagonist's mind was programmed by the Pandit ji in a particular way, even if that letter was of somebody's, she thought that it is my letter. And she left the church. They were meeting to marry, but the letter was for somebody. But you are reading the text that this text means this because your mind is already poisoned. That is what language is doing. That is how the language. So even that is very interesting. Why do we think in that way? And in film PK, that episode is quite beautifully used, which we can use here also in psychoanalysis, also psycholinguistic, also in structuralism, post-structuralism. Also, we can use that example. That why we think that somebody is telling that person is like this or that, and we readily believe. So that is the sign. Do we stand for a while to question those things? That rarely happens. Rarely. Educated people will stand for a while and question. But in that case, even if that female protagonist was not believing into religion or into Panditji, then also it was so easy to fool her. Then it was so easy it was to fool her when somebody is telling that this is this, that. And that is why language is unreliable. We are not supposed to rely on language. It may be coming from horse's mouth. Then also we have to we have to be very cautious to deal with language. That is what deconstruction is to tell. So they are creating doubt in our mind regarding the meanings, regarding the very structure of languages. All is doubted there. So in this song, Dushman is not India, but we read this and this attack also. Now, apart from that, we will trying to look a few years back. We're trying to look at what is the structure. When you see an episode that children are massacred, children are killed mercilessly. It may be a huge battle or war going on between whatever people, good people, bad people. We know now that the people who are bad today will become good in the history also. Those who are good today will become bad also. We never know who will become good or bad. Who will become freedom fighters if they win and come into the power. So that is how everything is there. It is not easy to decide. But we see event without any morality. Without good and bad, we see that, well, children are killed. So how many episodes do you remember from myth, from stories, from novels, from cinema, from anywhere, where you see that children are massacred, innocent children are massacred as a part of huge battle going on among the other people, good or bad people, and children are killed there. So then we find that, well, what happened in Peshawar was very bad thing, because when you fight with other people, you attack those people, but you do not attack the soft targets. Children are soft targets. And people always try to say that children should not be targeted in that capacity. And this is one of the worst form of attack that the terrorists have done in Pakistan. And terrorists were bitterly criticized from all the circles that this is not fair. Obviously, when America dropped the bombs, those bombs also dropped on children and many people who are innocent. It was not only the military base. You can attack military base. That is the fight of warriors. That is the fight of વીર. એ તમે સૈનિકોની સામે જઈને હુમલો કરો છો. સૈનિકો પાસે હથિયાર છે, એ પણ તમને મારી નાખે તોય તમે ત્યાં, એ થોડું બહાદુરી જેવું લાગે, એમાં થોડું કરેજ જેવું લાગે. પણ બાળકો સૂતા હોય, ભણતા હોય, ઘરમાં લોકો કામ કરતા હોય, હોસ્પિટલ્સ હોય, એવી જગ્યા ઉપર જઈને કોઈ હુમલો કરે તો એ બહુ ખરાબ કહેવાય. It is a very bad thing. It is nowhere any kind of virta or warriorship is not at all reflected in that also. So when we have seen this, we try to connect this episode with myth. Initially, when we see Pakistan, all are bad, આ બધા મુસ્લિમો આવા જ હોય. That is the immediate reaction that we will do. કે આ લોકો જ આટલા ખરાબ થાય, લોકો કહે છે કે મુસ્લિમ બહુ આક્રાંતા, ખૂબ જ ખરાબ કામ કરે. And then we see that, well, let us read Mahabharata. And you will find that the children of Pandavas were killed by whom? By a Brahmin. Ashwatthama killed. The sleeping children. બધા જ એમના બાળકોની હત્યા કોણે કરી હતી મહાભારતમાં? So it was Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya, a Brahmin who murdered sleeping children. So then you connect. Now this is what you see, is that, well, people of any caste, religion can be utterly bad, terribly bad. Things may go wrong. So you can't say that bad people only are of this religion or this color or this caste. That is what you try to get as a meaning. It is not so. But read minutely, you will not be fooled by those narratives, because you have so many examples in your mind. One event happens, you have series of such events. Now, when you are doing that, your mind is working like a structuralist. What your mind is doing is working like a structuralist, and it is very quickly connecting dots. Very quickly, it connects the event of today with the event of lot many things in past that has happened in different capacities, and you start seeing the connection with all those things. You see a larger structure. You see a larger structure. That is structuralist insight of reading and trying to do that. So they are trying to take you to the center of the meaning. What you read in the case of Mahabharata, in the murder of Ashwatthama, if you justify that, well, Ashwatthama is right, then these people are also right. These terrorists are also right. If you say he was wrong, these people are also wrong. But it will give you the same meaning, centrality of the meaning will come. And obviously it will tell about inhuman behavior. inhuman, inhumanity. That is what you will question in that capacity. So that is structuralist is taking us to the meaning. Now, in the same event, if you can problematize the thing, if you can raise questions in different way, then you are doing deconstruction. So when you are asking the question that, see this event, here there is a song. Song is an output of that event. And you say that now try to open this event. What are the visuals telling? You say that the visuals are telling me that these are Muslims. Now, how do you deconstruct that? You put another question that, so you are identifying people by clothes. That is deconstruction. That is the process of deconstruction. You're not supposed to do that. Clothes are clothes. Anybody can wear any kind of clothes. So if you have that in mind, it means your mind has those ideas that these people wear this kind of clothes, that people wear that kind of clothes. So you will see that good people wear this kind of clothes, bad people wear that kind of clothes. So in good and bad, you will have the clothes also. And you will not see the karma of people, but you will see the clothes of the people. And you will decide, you will stereotype people on the grounds of clothes. And it is a very dangerous thing. So deconstructionist, deconstructionist. Then you say the word Dushman, and if this is the Muslim, then Dushman is India only. So then again you question that why? Why that? So you are now deconstructing. So there is stereotypical way of looking in our mind. Now those needs to be removed. This stereotype. Now we don't know that we are stereotypical. આપણને ખબર જ નથી કે આપણે આવા છીએ. પણ ડીકન્સ્ટ્રક્શનિસ્ટ આપણને એ બધું કરાવે અને આપણને આપણો ખ્યાલ આવે કે હું આવું વિચારું છું, આવું કેમ હું વિચારું છું, કે હું આ રીતે કેમ જોઉં છું, મારે તો આમ ન જોવું જોઈએ, મને તો ખબર નથી કે હું આવું જોઉં છું. અત્યાર સુધી કેટલું બધું આવું જોઈ નાખ્યું, કેટલી બધી આવી મોટી મોટી ફિલોસોફી આપણે હાંકી લીધી હોય આ બધા નામે. ત્યારે આપણને ખ્યાલ હોય આ તો બધી બાલિશતાઓ હતી, આ રીતે ન જોવાય. We have to be human beings and we can't stereotype. We should not stereotype people on one or the another behavior in that. Now that is deconstruction in process. It is working there. And now this becomes a very interesting everyday process. This becomes very interesting every day. We can see something happening, connect with the structures, try to see what is the meaning, and then try to question and try to deconstruct one by one. That is, and this is to be done by self only. આપણે જાતે જ કરી શકીએ કે હું આ જોઉં તો મને શું દેખાય છે. We have to be honest with ourselves. આપણે જાત પ્રત્યે honest રહીએ કે આ જોઉં ત્યારે it looks like this, it looks like that, and it was quite fair. So when first time I have seen this video, I thought that these are the Indian students telling to Pakistan. Indian બાળકો છે અને પાકિસ્તાનને કહે છે કે અમે તમને અહિંસાનો પાઠ કેવો હોય એ તમને ભણાવવાની જરૂર છે. એટલે ઇન્ડિયાના લોકો બાળકો ગીત ગાય છે કે આપણે પાકિસ્તાન સાથે એ રીતે બદલો લઈએ કે એમને ભણાવીએ કે સાચું સારું શું. That was the initial reaction. And then you see that no, it is not India, it is Pakistan. Then you are surprised કે પાકિસ્તાનના બાળકો આવું ગીત કેમ ગાય. એને તો એ જ ગીત ગાવાનું છે કે તોડી નાખો, ફોડી નાખો, બોમ્બ બનીને ફૂટી જાઓ, એ તો આવા ગીત ગાવા જોઈએ. એ આવું ડાહી વાતો કરતું ગીત કેમ પાકિસ્તાની ગાય. So I have a stereotype about Pakistan. I have a stereotype about nations, about people in different ways, and I am looking through those stereotypes. So people question, I have never gone to Pakistan. I don't have any personal friend who is Pakistani. So I don't know anything about Pakistan as such. But I know things what is coming on in newspaper, and I know newspapers may be telling half truths. The media, the cinema, of late, most of the films were portraying Pakistani as villains. So I have concluded that Pakistanis are villains because the films I am watching, where there is always the Pakistani who is the villain. So then that has played a vital role. So I start looking within me, and we become better human in looking at the world. We try to break that these words will not give me worldview. I will have my own worldview without the words. Language વગરનું મારે વિશ્વ જોવું છે. આ ભાષા મારા વિશ્વ જોવાની રીત ઉપર હાવી થઈ જાય કે નથી થવા દેવું મારે. That is what you try to do at the end of deconstruction there. So I think that makes the point very clear, structuralism and post-structuralism. And now try to see more examples. Try to see more examples. You can do such activity with people also. આવું કોઈ ગીત કે પિક્ચર કે જાહેરાત કે લઈને લોકોને બતાવાય, લોકોને કહેવાય કે તમને શું આમાં લાગે છે. Social experiments you can do with anybody. એન્ડ વોટ્સએપ ઉપર આવું શેર કરીને એના મંતવ્યો લેવાય કે આ તમને શું લાગે છે અને કઈ ચેલેન્જિંગ વસ્તુ આવે છે, you can use that as an example. This is how people are looking, they see all these things in this way, and they try to do the things. So even what happened in Afghanistan, Taliban has been seen from variety of lenses. લોકોએ બહુ અલગ અલગ લેન્સ થી એ બધી વસ્તુ પણ જોઈ છે, જુદી જુદી રીતે they are trying to read in different ways, અને એ પોતાનો એક અભિગમ એમાં મૂકતા જાય કે જો અમે આ રીતે સાચા હતા, અમે તે રીતે સાચા હતા. And very opposite observations are coming. The other day we marked that on one side you think that it is good that the Taliban has taught lesson to America. But you can't be happy on that because what is happening is very inhuman. એટલે આવી નાનકડો આનંદ કે જીત મેળવવામાં આપણે એક બહુ મોટું યુદ્ધ હારી રહ્યા હોય એવું લાગે, અને એ યુદ્ધ ક્યું હારીએ છે? માનવતાનું યુદ્ધ. આપણે પણ ક્યાંક અંદરથી પેલા નર પિચાસ એક રાક્ષસ જેવા બની જતા એવું લાગે કે આપણને કોઈ દુખી થાય એનો આનંદ આવવા માંડે છે. જે નાનકડો એવો આનંદ પેલા ચંગેઝ ખાન ને WTC ટાવર ઉપર એટેક થયા ત્યારે આવેલો, અને ઓનેસ્ટલી થી એ કહે છે કે I was happy for a while. And he's telling to Bobby that, are you not happy when the bombs are dropped in Afghanistan, when so many people have died? You don't you feel that revenge is taken? તમને આનંદ થાય છે? આ બધા આનંદ છે એ રાક્ષસી આનંદો છે. આવા આનંદ માનવને ન થવા જોઈએ, અને હંમેશા માનવ હત્યા થાય ત્યારે વસવસો થવો જોઈએ, મારો હોય કે તેનો હોય, આમ તો માનવ જ હતો. ઇફ ધ પર્સન ઇઝ કિલ્ડ, તો એ થતું નથી આપણને, અને આપણને આવા નાના મોટા આનંદ જે આવતા હોય કે revenge is taken in one or the another way. So that is also many ways we can see how structuralism can be seen and how we can deconstruct that also. Okay, so our next concern today is about, yes, so let us have questions for the second concern now. You can see if it will work, otherwise we'll put this mic. Okay, speak. Hello. Yeah, your voice will be captured here. So speak loudly.
In second video, behavior and Derrida, my question is what is logocentrism and concentrism?
Okay, yeah. Okay, let us take all the questions first, and then we will see this. Okay, so that was about logocentrism and phonocentrism. Yes, next one.
Yes, sir. From video number 2, my question is that at the end of this video, the speaker says that according to my question is that at the end of this video, the speaker says that according to Derrida, monocentrism is a manifestation of logocentrism of Western metaphysics. So, in what extent can we see the tendency to privilege presence over actions?
Okay, so we are getting this term. Logocentrism, phonocentrism. Yes, this word. And there was also phalagocentrism. Okay, yes, next question. Let us see.
My question is that Derrida points out that these oppositions are not equal, but hierarchy where the second term is considered either derivative or inferior to the first, the privileged one. I am unable to understand that.
Of Okay, fine. Your question deals with this is what we have seen yesterday also. Yes, privileging one term over the another term. So this again is connected with logocentrism and phonocentrism. Also, when you say speech is privileged over writing, this concept is known as phonocentrism. Phonocentrism. Yeah. Okay. So we'll come to this also again to discuss some of the points here. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Next.
Also, I have a question that from the video number 3, how and which way logocentrism connect with metaphysics of actions. This is my question.
Okay, so with this, we also will get metaphysics of presence. Yeah? So how do we see in the same connection the concept of metaphysics of presence, which Derrida is discussing? Okay.
Yes, sir. In video number 3, Derrida said that the meaning of word is nothing but the other. When we look for the meaning of any word, we think about what we have been taught about that particular word. So sometimes we have conflict with the real meaning of that particular word. So how can we remove that conflict?
Okay. Okay, so from this privileging of the term, we also will see about free play of meaning, wherein this question also will get connected with that point that how Derrida gives the concept of free play of meaning. From we are drifted or decentered or supplemented by another terms instead of meaning. So how do we get to the meaning? How do we get in that? Now that question is, how do we get that question is answered by Saussure, Ferdinand de Saussure, when he says that the meanings are arbitrary, but they are relational and they are conventional. And because of they are relational and conventional, we read things in a particular way on. So even if it is arbitrary and free play, as such, we do not have a problem in getting to the first immediate meaning of any word. That is why only communication is possible. Otherwise, communication is not possible. We can't communicate with each other if there is a kind of a free play of meaning with everything as Derrida is trying to philosophize. Yeah. So that is that answer. That why this? Because we readily jump to the easy answer or the first answer or the way that word is normally used. The question obviously comes when we think deeply on that, and then when we ponder upon it, and then we try to read the variety of meanings or the absences that are there, instead of looking only at the presence. If we try to look also at the absence, then we get confused or we get ambiguity as such. Okay. So maybe in our other discussion also that point will be connected. But remember, Ferdinand de Saussure, what he said, that meanings are arbitrary, but yet we understand things in a particular way because they are relational in a given context. We gave you an example that if I am I'm asking somebody that show me the duster. Now there won't be a confusion about duster because I will be in some context. We are always in some context. So if I am in a car showroom and I say show me the duster, then they will show me the Duster brand car. And I am in a classroom context and I say that show me the duster. I am in a stationery shop. I've gone to purchase a duster in a stationery shop. Then now even in both the contexts, person has gone for purchasing. કોઈ ભણાવવાનો કોન્ટેક્સ્ટ જ નથી, બંને જગ્યાએ ખરીદી છે, શોપિંગ છે, પણ ક્યાં શોપિંગ કરો છો? Are you shopping in a car, a showroom, or in a stationery shop? That also will make the concept of duster very clear. So that is that how do we get to the meaning? That is the concern there. Okay, yes, next.
May I, sir?
Yes, online. Yes, online. Yes, yeah. Yes, yeah.
In video 2, my question is, how can we find the perfect meaning of man is descended from the language?
Okay, good question. You can say that how is man decentered? By language. Okay, yeah, okay, we'll see this. We'll have to have little bit detailed discussion on this point. Okay, yes, next.
May I, sir? Okay, so in video 3, duration time 2 minutes 40 seconds, here the speaker talks about metaphysical of presence, which again refers to Heidegger and also the connection between Heidegger and Derrida. So can you please try to explain this easily? And also I am not able to understand this word logocentrism and phonocentrism, so please throw some light on it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we'll come to that those questions also, logocentrism, phonocentrism also. Okay, yes, okay, next one, next question. Yes, online students. Or have we covered the questions? Yes. So it might be you can speak your question. Yes.
Man is decentered from language, and in what way can man express his own thoughts?
In what way?
In what way can man express his own thoughts? His own thoughts.
Yes.
If man is decentered from language, then in what way can man express his own thoughts?
Man, last words I'm not getting.
Man is decentered from language, then in what way can man express his own thoughts?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so how can man or men express the thoughts if you are decentered from the language? Okay, we'll see that in this connection also. Okay, anybody else? Any questions remaining there?
Yes, sir. I want
yes,
to know
Bhavyan.
know more about a metaphysical of presence.
Okay, metaphysics of presence. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so let us see. The major concern here we see is about logocentrism and phonocentrism first, and then the another subsequent point we can see here. Let me share this screen. Okay, let us see this concept here, logocentrism, phonocentrism here. Okay? So, the basic quest for all philosopher, we know that Derrida is a philosopher, yes? And he is in quest of philosophizing. Now, basic quest of philosophy is to know what is right and wrong. And that is what we call truth. What is ultimate knowledge? What is ultimate truth? And it is our understanding of what is right and what is wrong. That is truth ultimately. That is why we have this concept of Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. What is it to be Shiv? Shiv is to means you know what is Satya. And what is it to know truth? You know what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is evil. If you go back to the Bible, the connection of Bible in this context, we find that when Adam and Eve were not, they were denied to eat of fruit. That tree was tree of knowledge. And Satan tells that after eating a fruit of tree of knowledge, what are you going to get? You will get the knowledge of what is good and what is evil. And that is what makes a difference between human and divine. What is it to be God? God means you know what is right and what is wrong. God means you know the truth of what is good and what is evil. Once you will taste the fruit, you will be almost like divine, almost like God. So that is the argument which Satan gives to Eve, and Eve is testing the fruit. So we get the connection that ultimately what is the quest of all forms of knowledge is to know the truth, and what is the truth is this. So all philosophy is considered as mother of all knowledge systems. Is considered as mother of all knowledge systems. And its basic concern is this, that to be in quest of right, wrong, good, evil things, and that is the truth. So if truth is that which reveals its presence to one's consciousness through reflection, then the object of philosophy, object here means aim of philosophy, is the communication of this truth through language. And therein lies the rub. There comes the problem. For as Derrida pointed out, the very idea of truth depends on its ability to stand alone before and outside any means of representing it. Now, see, that is the very interesting problem, that the basic purpose of philosophy is to know the truth. But how are you going to convey the truth to other people? Through language. And then there is the problem. Can language carry those truths? Can language tell us only one thing at a time? Well, Derrida problematizes that no. Language can mean variety of things. Language can mean so many different things. Now, maybe because of this was known to the Western philosophers, or to everybody perhaps, even in India also, the linguists, and they were very much aware about what language can do, what language cannot do. So we also have thought about bhav also here. The meaning, the dhvani, when we see dhvani or a different alankar, we find that language means variety of things. The same language you can use and you can mean so many different things also. Now, because the Western philosophers were aware about this, so what they did is that they said that a speech is privileged over written word. That is where phonocentrism comes. Phono means spoken word. Phono means spoken word. Now, speech. So, why they privileged speech over writing? Because a written word can mean anything in subsequent times. समय बदलाई जाए, માણસો બદલાઈ જાય પછી અર્થને ગમે તે રીતે વાંચે, અર્થમાં અનર્થ પણ કાઢે લખેલા શબ્દો. The question is that તો બોલાયેલામાં ન થાય. If it is spoken, then will not that happen? Well, it will not happen because when a word is spoken, it is very near to the mind from where the word is coming. It is very near from where the idea is sprouting. Ultimate truth is idea. Ultimate truth is idea. And when a speaker who has got that idea is very near the idea, so the spoken word is nearest to the truth. And when a word is spoken, it is also spoken with lots of emotions. Written words don't have any emotions. Written words are just written words. So they can, in whatever mood I am reading the words, I will mean those things also. I will start seeing a different meaning into those words also. So that's why Western philosophers privileged speech over writing. That writing is almost denied in, for example, in Plato's Academy, it is a written and documented thing. These are documented also, because Plato's Academy is considered as one of the foremost academy of learning, like a university or a college, where people used to study, and that was the first of its kind. Socrates was a philosopher, but he was not running an academy. It was not. It was his was like Facebook. Facebook ઉપર લોકોને ગામ આખાને સલાહ શીખામણ આપવાની, એટલે ત્યારે ચોરાહા ઉપર ભેગા થાય યુવાનો એને વાતો કરવાની એમની સાથે. So that was the Socratic method, whereas Plato started the academy, and in his academy writing was not allowed. He was against writing. So teacher will also not use any form of blackboard, wooden plank, charcoal to write anything. Nobody will write, neither teacher nor learners. Learners will have to memorize everything, but nobody should take any notes or other thing. The idea is phonocentrism. Speech is privileged over writing. Now there is a very interesting episode which becomes very important to be seen in this context here, coming from Plato's Phaedrus. Phaedrus is the dialogues written by Plato. And there is an anecdote in Phaedrus from which we can see this. The anecdote is a kind of a dialogue between Thuth. Thuth is the god, Greek god, who invented, the Greek god of invention, who invented writing. લેખનની શોધ કરનાર ઈશ્વર. And he is going to the king Themis, who also is in a way a god, King Themis. And this Thuth god visits Themis, and he offered his invention. Thuth is the god who like we have Vishwakarma, the god of inventions, like the same way this Greek god who is known for inventing numbers, calculations, geometry, astronomy, and writing also. And writing also is invented by this god. He visits this is recorded by Plato. It's an anecdote. ઈશ્વરની વાતો બધી વાર્તાઓ જ હોય છે, પણ એ એક ઉદાહરણ આપવા માટે કે શું કામ, એટલે ખરેખર આવું કોઈ ઈશ્વરે કર્યું હોય, ભાષા બનાવી હોય, લેખન બનાવ્યું હોય અને પછી ગિફ્ટમાં આપવા ગયા હોય, એ નહીં, એ અર્થ લેવાનો નથી. પણ પ્લેટો એનો અર્થ કઈ રીતે લે છે અને આજે આપણે એને કઈ રીતે જોઈએ, how we see it today. So he did this and he visited this, and he said that I have invented writing and I would like to give it as a gift to you and to your citizens, to Themis. That used it. So Themis asked that, what am I going to do with writing? What are my people going to do? Themis said that, well, this will help in memory. Your people will have a better memory if they have something written. And if your people will be full of memory, they will be a human of wisdom. And you will be ruling over a people who are humans of wisdom. So my writing will help in memory, and then memory will help in making them humans full of wisdom. So that is the invention that I want to offer to your people. Now, what was the answer? What was the answer of Themis to the god of invention who invented this? To this Themis replied, Thuth, my paragon of inventors, the discoverer of an art, is not the best judge of the good or harm which will accrue to those who practice it. It's very interesting. Okay, for example, જનેતા હોય એ તો એમના બાળકોના વખાણ જ કરે. એમને તો ક્યારેય એમાં કોઈ પણ જાતની કમી દેખાય જ નહીં જનેતાને. તો એટલે ઇન્વેન્ટર હોય એ તો એને વખાણ જ દેખાય, એને સારી પાસું જ દેખાય, એ તો વખાણ જ કરે. પણ આના બીજા પાસા પણ છે, which I can see in writing. So he says, so it is in this you who are the father of writing have out of fondness for your offspring attributed to it quite the opposite of its real function. You say that writing will help in memory, and memory will lead to making people having wisdom. But he says that this attributes that you are giving to writing is completely opposite. It will do quite opposite thing on the people. What is that? So he says that those who acquire it, that is writing, will cease to exercise their memory and become forgetful. એક વખત રાઇટિંગ માં આવી જશે પછી લોકો મેમરી માં યાદ નહીં રાખે ને બધું ભૂલી જશે. They will tend to become forgetful rather than making their memory powerful. They will rely on writing to bring things to their remembrance by external signs like ABCDR, Kakhaga, external signs, instead of by their own internal resources. Instead of relying on your mind and your own connection with the things, because when things are in your memory, you have your own mind map. You have connected things one with another one. And there is a network of this thing in your mind. When it is relying on outside words, outside thing, then this will be damaged. The internal system that is in the human mind, which is supporting memory, and when we process on the memory and the information, we become humans of wisdom. But that will not happen, he says. What you have discovered is a receipt for recollection, not for memory. આ યાદ કરાવવા માટેનું એક યંત્ર બરાબર, પણ મેમરીનું નહીં. યાદ કરાવવાનું એટલે તમે ચોપડી ખોલો તો યાદ આવે આટલા કામ આજે કરવાના છે. મેમરીમાં ભૂલાઈ ગયા હોય, પણ ટુ ડુ લિસ્ટ રાખી હોય તો આપણને ખ્યાલ આવે કે આટલું આટલું કરવાનું છે. તો એ ખાલી it's a tool of recollection. It is not of memory. And as for wisdom, your pupils will have the reputation for it without the reality. Wisdom ની વાત આવે, જ્ઞાન ની વાત આવે તો આજની પાસે રાઇટિંગ હશે એ બધાને એક વહેમ આવી જશે કે બધા જ્ઞાની થઈ ગયા છે. એ ખરેખર જ્ઞાની નહીં થયા હોય, પણ એ ઇલ્યુઝનમાં વહેમમાં રહેશે કે રાઇટિંગમાં છે એટલે હું જ્ઞાની છું. I have that wisdom. So it says, for it without the reality, they will receive a quantity of information without proper instruction, and in consequence be thought very knowledgeable when they are for the most part quite ignorant. They will think that they are knowledgeable, but they will be quite ignorant. And because they are filled with the conceit of wisdom instead of real wisdom, they will be a burden on society. પાછો એક નશો, conceit, એક નશામાં આવશે કે અમે તો બહુ બધા જ્ઞાની છીએ, તો એને લીધે એક સમાજ ઉપર મોટું બર્ડન બની જશે. So I don't want this writing for my citizens. Writing is very dangerous. That is the anecdote Plato is using in Phaedrus to tell this. Well, this very example proves couple of things. One, it gives us a good example that how phonocentrism and in that wide speech was privileged. We have seen one example that idea is the reality. Plato believed that idea is the truth. Idea is reality. Once that reality is going into language, it is once removed from reality. If it is going in creation, then it is twice removed from reality. or it is thrice removed from reality. And that is what Plato said when he criticized literature also. So he said that when an idea of chair comes in my mind, idea of chair, that is the pure idea. That is the first chair. When that idea is shared with a carpenter, and carpenter is making a chair, that is once removed from reality. That chair which is now visible is once removed from reality. Now what the artist will do? Artist will copy the outside chair, which was a copy of an idea, because artists cannot see the idea. Artists can only see the external world. So you copy only the chair, which is a copy of idea. So your is a copy of a copy. Work of art is a copy of a copy. So it is twice removed from reality. That's why he said that, well, artists are all liars. એમને પોતાનો આઈડિયા કઈ હોતો નથી, કઈ જોયું અનુકરણ કરી લે, એ જોઈ એની કોપી કરે, એટલે ઇમિટેશન કરે, ઇમિટેશન. And he says imitation has no sense. જેમ કે we also have a Gujarati term for that. We call it નકલમાં અકલ ન હોય. નકલમાં અકલ ન હોય. That is what Plato said, that this all literary writers, artists, painters, they all are just doing nakal. They don't have the original idea. Who has got original idea? Philosophers has got original idea. So philosophers should be there in the ideal state, and artists should be banished. Poets should be banished from that. So that is one idea, speech. And what, how is it? And then speech is very near to idea, because it is when the person is speaking, the person has worked on the idea and now is speaking. So those words which are spoken by the person who thought, it is nearest. So those words are nearest to the truth. Truth is at the center. Yes, that's why this is very important. Spoken word. Now, when I am speaking and you are writing, or anybody else is writing the words and then reading after in the evening, next day, third day, fourth day, or after 5 generations, it is far, far away from where the idea was. Far away. So if a person who has thought and is telling something, and if somebody is questioning, we can clarify, not that meaning. I want to say this, not that. Now this not that becomes neti, which is again a Sanskrit idea also. In Indian philosophy also, there is the idea about neti. There is not this, not this. Now the speaker can say this, that not this or not that, because he has got that idea in the mind. He has worked on the original idea. But if we are just reading the books and we are trying to tell, then we are away from those ideas. So writing is meaningless. And this example, which proves that they were against writing on the ground that it will not make people intelligent or full of wisdom, but it will give an illusion which is more harmful. Well, today, why it is very important? Because today we have not writing, forget about writing, but we have Google, and Google knows everything. So we start believing that I know everything. I can quickly ask Google for anything, so I don't have to burden my mind. I don't have to think independently. Whenever a question is asked to me, I will just go to Google without even staying with that question. જરૂરી નથી કે બધું આપણને આવડતું હોય. ઘણા બધા પ્રશ્નોના જવાબ એમ સિદ્ધા જવાબ હોતા જ નથી. એ ખાલી પ્રશ્નો પર વિચારવા માટે હોય છે. જેમ આપણે જોયું કે you ask a question that who is the son of Jawaharlal Nehru, but now that question was not to be seen in Google. That question was just to think on it. It was just to think, and you will find an answer. That what is the meaning of this question? The answer is save the girl child. It is not that no, Jawaharlal Nehru had no children, no son. That is not the answer. So how can we say that what is the answer if we don't think on the question? આપણે પ્રશ્ન ઉપર વિચાર જ ન કરીએ અને સીધા જ ગૂગલમાં ચાલ્યા જઈએ અને કે ત્યાંથી જે જવાબ આવે એ જવાબ લઈને કોપી પેસ્ટ કરીને લો માથે મારીએ. પૂછનારને માથે સીધો આપણે જવાબ મારી દે કે લો આ જવાબ. So we don't even give a space of thinking also. So we get, and then we say that, well, જો મારો જવાબ સાચો પડ્યો, તો મારો જવાબ જ નથી. બોલનાર કે વાહ બહુ સરસ, તમે બહુ સરસ જવાબ આપ્યો, પણ એ જવાબ તો એનો છે જ નહીં, તો ક્યાં ગૂગલમાંથી આવ્યો. તો પછી હું ખોટો ગર્વ કરું કે મારો જવાબ હંમેશા સાચો પડે. It is not my answer. It is not mine. તો એ જે સમાજ ઉભો કરે એ બહુ ખરાબ સમાજ ઉભો કરે, કે જેમાં લોકો દંભ ભરેલા હોય કે અમે બધા જ્ઞાની છીએ અને જ્ઞાન ખરેખર કોઈ પાસે હોતું નથી. એ બીક થેમસને હતી, જે ઇટ્સ વેરી વેલિડ ફિયર which we see now in a different form with technology. આજે ટેકનોલોજી સાથે એ ડર જુદી રીતે આપણી સામે ઉભો છે કે ઘણા બધા લોકો પાસે ફિંગર ટિપ્સ ઉપર હોવાથી આપણને એવો વહેમ થવા માંડે કે બધું મને ખબર છે કે બધું મને આવડે છે. That is the second point, very important, is that after 2000 years of Plato's Phaedrus, when we look back, we find that Plato was wrong. Why Plato was wrong? Because today writing has become so important that we can't live without writing. Writing has helped in knowledge systems, preserving knowledge systems. Today we are able to read Plato only because it is written. Plato was not making YouTube videos and uploading that we can listen Plato. There was no podcast by Plato that we can listen him. So if there were no writers and if everybody believed in Plato's idea, then if nothing was written, then such a large amount of knowledge might have been lost to us. And today also, whatever we do, writing is helping us a lot in preserving the knowledge and other things also. The same way, so the criticism of writing was false. That is what Derrida would question, that this privileging speech over writing in Western philosophy is problematic. When we come down to 20th century and now 21st century, we find that, well, now we are privileging writing over speech. Now writing is more important rather than speech. So even if you share videos, students will say share the writing. I think last time somebody asked where are the PPTs. I think they are asked that, yeah. So you want PDF and PPTs rather than videos. So you don't want now speech. You want the written content that is helping more than the recorded video and other thing also. So it means that Plato was wrong. In 2000 years, he is proven wrong that writing is important. It is helping people in variety of ways. And today's intellectuals, men of wisdom, they also are writers, they are readers also. They are writing, publishing, many things are also there. Now, same thing we can say, as a part of a digression, we can say same thing can happen with technology also. Those who are the critic of technology, and they would say in the same context that technology is making people dumb. Perhaps yes, technology is making people dumb also, but it doesn't mean that technology will only make people dumb. We may also find a way out from that. And the way writing was not making only people dumb, but it is so useful, technology also will be useful to many people. Many people will make a better use of technology as people made better use of writing also. So that way also. So that is how we can see the parallel, writing and technology. And historically it is proven that the writing is very important. Plato is proved wrong in that context, that writing will do this or that kind of damage. If that damages happen, then also we do not feel any kind of lacuna or gap for that damage. કે લેખન ન જ હોત ને બધું ઓરલ હોત તો આપણને વધુ મજા આવત, એવો વસવસો આપણને થતો નથી. રાઇટિંગ ના હોત તો મજા આવત, એવો પણ ખાસ કોઈ વસવસો એવો વિચારે આપણને આવતો નથી કે રાઇટિંગ જ ન હોત તો કેવી મજા આવત. તો વોટ વુડ હેપન કે તમારી બધી પરીક્ષા ઓરલ લેવાતી હોત અને એ તો બહુ મોટું મુસીબતનું કામ થાય. આ ગમે તે લખીને તો આવી જાય, બધું બોલવું તો અઘરું પડે. બધું બોલીને જવાબ આપો કે ચલો તમારે 2.5 કલાક બોલવાનું, આમાં 500 શબ્દ બોલવાના, આમાં 1000 શબ્દ બોલવાના. So it would be terrible to speak and remember all this thing and then give exams and other things would perhaps will be more problematic also. So that is one point of phonocentrism that come. But ultimate truth is about ultimate quest is about truth, philosophy, and this privileging over various things that we find there. Western philosophy is permeated by what Derrida called logocentrism, or the assumption that there is a realm of truth that exists prior to and independent of its representation in language. So now phonocentrism, I think you have understood. Phonocentrism is a part of logocentrism. It's a part of logocentrism. So if all these things, you can switch over this here. When we see this, you can bring here, so I think this can be visible. So when we see in terms of privileging something over another one, it is like logos, like words. Logos means word, or something is privileged over another one. And what is in a way privileged in this context we find is that the meaning of the word pre-existed the word. that is privileged. And then we get a series of privileging. And when we are here, it is phonocentrism. The entire context, entire discussion can be seen as a part of logocentrism. Phonocentrism is a part of logocentrism. Now, what is this word logos? Logos means word, and apart from word, it is also God also. It is also God. So we can see a concept like Shabda Brahma. Shabda Brahma. So that is that there is divinity in the word. And the idea, which is again resonating with Indian philosophies also, that truth exists without words or pre-exist words also. શબ્દ પછી આવે છે, સત્ય ઓલરેડી છે જ, મીનિંગ ઓલરેડી છે, સત્ય એટલે મીનિંગ, અર્થ એ છે જ, શબ્દ પછી આવે છે અને એ શબ્દ વગર પણ અર્થ અસ્તિત્વમાં છે. આવું વેસ્ટર્ન ફિલોસોફી માનતું આવે, that is logocentrism. Now Derrida questions that idea. Derrida problematizes that if I have a language now and my world is all governed by language and I see the world through language, I mean everything through language, then even if something pre-existed language, it is as such meaningless to us. Where is that meaning? What is that meaning? It is nearly now impossible to go. Now everything is controlled by language only. Now everything is there. So the idea that something pre-existed, the earth was given by divine power to all the Sabda, now that is in a way unbelievable, because that we can't reach perhaps in that context also. So that is that point, you see. So we see here that assumption that there is a realm of truth that exists prior to and independent of its representation is language. એટલે એવું માનવું કે અર્થની પહેલે પાર, સોરી, શબ્દની પહેલે પાર અર્થ રહેલા છે and they are independent of language, that is logocentrism. That is logocentrism. But this concept is very, very problematic concept. આ જ કોન્સેપ્ટમાંથી આ પ્રિવિલેજિંગ આવે છે. અને એ પ્રિવિલેજિંગમાં એક મહત્વની વાત આવે છે કે જે હાજર છે એની પૂજા થાય છે. જે હાજર છે એની પૂજા થાય છે. That is metaphysics of presence. જે હાજર છે એને તમે માન્ય રાખો છો. જે હાજર નથી, જે ગેરહાજર છે, એબ્સન્ટ છે, એને તમે જોતા જ નથી. You don't see the absence. But absence also is there. And when we privilege meaning over meaninglessness, then meaninglessness also is there. You see only the meaning, but meaninglessness is there. You privilege life over death, death also is there, but you privilege only life. You talk only about life, what to do with life. You never talk about death. So it doesn't mean death is not there. But in metaphysics of presence, because we all live, we don't die as such, we live when we talk with each other, when we use language, we live. So we celebrate life. And we never give any kind of value to death as such. We don't know. Maybe after death, we may be celebrating death. We don't know that. So that realm is untraveled. So where we live, we only do that, and we privilege that. So in that, all these things, light over darkness, day over night, good over bad, identity over difference, fullness over emptiness, in all these kinds of things, we tend to see that there is already a meaning before the word. Actually, it is not there. We have given, although that is what Derrida would try to deconstruct, the pre-existence of any meaning in the language. Logos is derived from Greek term for word and reason, but was often used to signify some form of transcendental truth or meaning, what Derrida referred to as transcendental signified. So according to Derrida, linked together phonocentrism, which we have seen now, speech was considered natural and perfect. We have seen that. Speaker is a guaranteed meaning, the spoken word, this we have referred already. For Derrida, the claim that speech was capable of providing transparent access to meaning amounted to nothing less than the absolute effacement of the signifier. So now if I go from, for example, a sign, signifier, and signified. So if I see that each and every sign has signified only, there is already a meaning there, then I am jumping over a signifier. this part is being overlooked by me. When I see directly that this means only this, then the signifier is overlooked in that context here. So that is, it said they amounted nothing, absolute effacement, removal, erasure of signifier. It was the condition of the logocentric belief that truth can exist without mediation. Truth can exist without mediation. Whose mediation? Language is mediation. As Niall Lucy has suggested, the object of phonocentrism was not the projection of the purity of speech as such, but what might be called a certain ideal of the purity of purity. The idea that there just is purity, authenticity, truth, and so on, prior to and independent of any system of writing, outside any need to express, convey, argue, or talk about any other. So now this is very interesting point. So that why were people doing all this thing? That there is a meaning prior to language and other kind of thing? Because they wanted to ascertain that there is a kind of a purity of purity. And you want to remain in that concept that something is pure, something is Brahma, something is divine. You want to express that. And in that Brahma or in divine, there is no chance of any error. There is no chance. It is a perfect. There is a perfection in that. So when you see language is imperfect. Everybody is speaking variety of language. People are seeing different kinds of meaning. You see, so you have to say that, well, meaning pre-existed language. Language can be impure, but meanings are pure. They are something there. So that is very important to see that certain ideal of the purity was necessary, whether it is speech, whether it is presence, whether it is identity, whether it is fullness, whether it is life, whether it is light, or you keep on adding the thing. As we have put the words like man and women also in this binary. So man will fall under this category where there is purity, and women has impurity. And we can easily now connect that, well, menstruation time and then impurity. And then you have this ritual and that ritual, which connects with the body that is impure. So suddenly you start seeing that why you wanted to celebrate man's body, because you wanted to say something is pure. And so you want to relegate something that is not impure, but something is biological truth. It is biological truth. It is natural truth. But you want to relegate that natural truth into something negative, in something. So you put it into the category of impurity. So now everything starts changing. Whether writing is not impure as such, if you change that idea, absence is very important as such, because there is always a gap between what is said and not said. So that gap is to be reading between the lines, where there is something. And even without that, when we say, we studied this example, that whenever we utter a single word, we try to always negate the absences. So we said that when I say I am a man, I say that I am not a woman. I say that I am not an animal. I say that I am not this. Now these are all absences which are there around when I say I am this or I am that. Now you might have seen many times people earlier we used to have several examples in DS also, so we used to point out DS examples to prove that point, so then people can easily strike. કે આપણે બહુ કુદરતી રીતે એવું બોલી જતા હોય કે અમારામાં આવું હોય, તમારામાં આવું હોય. એમ વાતચીત કરતા કરતા લોકો હવે અમારા એટલે તમે કોણ? આર યુ નોટ હ્યુમન બીંગ્સ? તમે ગુજરાતી નથી, તમે હિન્દુ નથી, બધું છો. હા, તો તમે કેમ જુદા? કેમ તમે તમારી જાતને આવી જુદી ભાષામાં કે અમારામાં આવું હોય? So earlier we used to have lots of debate. So many students will come ultimately to this કે ભાઈ અમારામાં આવું હોય, તમને નહીં સમજાય. એટલે હવે એ અમારા તમે કોણ? યુ ઓલ આર ફ્રોમ સૌરાષ્ટ્ર ઓનલી. આમાં કોઈ સૌરાષ્ટ્ર બહારથી પણ નથી આવતું, તો હજી આપણે કહીએ કે કંઈક ભેદભાવ હોય, બીજા રાજ્યમાંથી બીજા દેશમાંથી આવ્યા હોય તો બરાબર, અમારા તમારું થાય. આ તો અહીંના અહીંના તો પણ આપણે કેટલા બધા અમારા તમારામાં રહેતા હોય છે. સો ધીસ આર ઓલ એબ્સન્સીસ વિચ વી ડોન્ટ સી. આપણે જોતા નથી, આપણી આજુબાજુ એ સતત એ ભાસતું હોય છે. આપણે જોઈએ શું? પ્રેઝન્સ શું છે એ રીતે આપણું માઇન્ડ તૈયાર થાય છે એ જ જોવા માટે. So many of those absences we are not reading, we are not observing. આપણી લેંગ્વેજ ખૂબ જ ડિવિઝન થી ભરેલી છે. અને minutely એનો અભ્યાસ કરે તો ઘણું બધું આવું જોવા મળે કે these are the things which are fissures, fractures, તિરાડો અથવા threshold તરીકે આપણે એને જોઈ શકીએ. So that all becomes a part of that. So in all this thing, હવે જ્યારે કોઈ વ્યક્તિ કે અમારામાં આવું હોય ત્યારે એને પ્યોરિટીના કોન્સેપ્ટ તરીકે જુએ છે કે આ તો કરવું જોઈએ, આ તો બહુ સારું છે, આ તો અમે લોકો કરીએ, બીજા ન કરતા હોય. લાઈક હમણાં રક્ષાબંધન થઈ તો so many Brahmins posted about this Janevu and changing of Janevu and other kinds of things. So now what is this? This is like you are demarcating yourself from other people, that we are better off than other people. We are દ્વિજ, અમે હવે ભગવાન માણસ બન્યા છે અથવા માણસમાંથી હવે ભગવાન બન્યા છે. Divine power, many things are there. Narratives are innumerable, narratives are there in those things. But that is the difference. It is something for a difference. It is something for a purity, that I am more pure because I do this. I do. Now you will find the same kind of purity is practiced by Muslims also. It is practiced by Yahudi also, by other people also. Everywhere it is there. But when I read Muslims, I can easily see that, well, you are creating that. I don't see that when our people do that, with inverted comma about our people. When they do, then I don't say, why are you differentiating? Either everybody will do or nobody will do. Why is it so necessary? Yet લોકોને તોય એમને ઢીંગલા પોતિયા રમવા હોય તો રમવાની છૂટ, એમાં કોઈ રોકી ન શકે કે મારે આ ઢીંગલા ઢીંગલીના લગ્ન કરવા છે ને મારે આવી રમત રમવી છે, તો you can play. But if you are in the same process, if you are having a certain ideal of purity, then it is problematic. Then it is highly problematic. By doing something, you are telling that I am more pure than you. So when the Dalits will come, I will again take a bath, because Dalit will cross my road, and so there is impurity in Dalit's body, which you might have seen if you see Sanskar, a novel by U.R. Ananthamurthy, or a film made by Girish Karnad, Sanskar, or in many ways that we can represent that. So then people would say. So somebody say that early morning bath, why? Because it is about purity. And some people do not take bath, so they are impure. And so one eats this kind of food, another eats another kind of food. So one is pure, another is impure. So all this binaries, ultimately entire language leads into this concept. That is why it is problematic. That is why we need to question the very idea about logos, whether it is coming from logos means a god or a divine, then also it is problematic. So even if one says of the Brahma, or Brahma means Aham Brahmasmi, and then that word, half word of Brahma will be taken away by Brahmin, and so they will say that Brahmand means Brahma, means Brahmin, means Brahma. So you start connecting and seeing. Now Brahmand means universe, the universe. It is not Aham Brahmasmi also means I am a part of universe, and it is not about any caste. It is not about being Brahmin or the other thing. But when you value the word Brahma, and when somebody takes that word Brahmin, they suddenly become superior, more pure over other people. Now you have to question that word. You have to question. Without that, it is not possible to bring everybody on equal plane also. So that is that problem of logocentrism that is replete in the language with the concept of purity. As such, it keeps on reflecting. So that is how it plays its own vital role, logocentrism, in all discourses, all kinds of discourses, whether you take marriage as an example, education system as an example. If you take as an example, everywhere you will find this privileging as a part of logocentrism. So as we have seen earlier in marriage system, if you marry, then you are more privileged over other people. So the unmarried people are not privileged. So sometimes when we have a large discourse about overpopulation or population as a problem, when we are seeing that, at that time not marrying should be something very valuable. But it is not so still in society. It is still not. So if somebody says that I don't want to marry, then people should do a kind of julus or celebration and a kind of a thing like that. As sometimes that happens in Jain, when they become sadhu or sadhvi and they deny to marry, and then there is lots of celebration around that. But it is not privileged. Those things are not privileged by and large, as a kind of a discourse also there. So that is the point of logocentrism, that how over the time in Western philosophy things were privileged by connecting it with that there is a transcendental signified, there is a kind of a truth beyond the language, and Derrida would question that. That well, now language is what we have, and language means everything. So all your transcendentalism will break down, and from that metaphysics of presence, it means what is present we appreciate. We appreciate the presence. The absence is very much visible, but we deny to see the absence in many of our discourses also. So deconstruction becomes the reading of absences also. A particular text is seen in a particular way for many years, and now suddenly you see that the text can be seen from that angle also. Now that what was present was celebrated. Now you are rereading that text and you are saying that, well, this also was already there. You are not adding a meaning. It is already there. Ek પણ શબ્દ તમે sonnet નો બદલતા નથી. The example of sonnet that we have seen. You might have seen the video. So you are not changing any word. You are not adding anything. It is already there. એ ત્યાં જ છે. તો હવે એ ગેરહાજરીને એ રીતે વાંચવાનું શરૂ કરો તો આખો sonnet તૂટી જાય છે. Sonnet was known for something. Now sonnet becomes already for something else which is opposite of that. Opposite of that. So what was that? That sonnet, Shakespearean sonnet, was considered as one of the best love sonnet. લોકો love proposal, marriage proposal હોય ત્યારે એ sonnet નું પઠન કરે, લગ્નમાં પઠન કરે પ્રેમના પેલા માટે કે you are something very important for me. So that way, that was the love sonnet, which was considered as one of the best love sonnets and for the expression of love. Now, in a deconstructive reading, what we find is that ultimately poet is telling that I am more important than you. તું તો કાંઈ નથી, હું જ છું બધું. એ તો હું પોયમ લખું તો તું અમર થા. નહીતર નહીં, એટલે આ તો હું, આ તો પોએટ પોતાના ગીત ગાય છે. પોએટ ક્યાં પેલી એની પ્રેયસીના ગીત ગાય છે. પ્રેયસીને એમ લાગે છે કે મારું ગીત છે. નહીં, આ પ્રેયસીનું ગીત જ નથી, આ તો કવિનું ગીત છે. કવિ પોતાના વખાણ કરે છે. એ કહે છે કે તને અમર બનાવવું મારા હાથમાં છે, મારા શબ્દોમાં છે, ને શબ્દો એટલે હું કવિ છું. So I will make you immortal by writing a poem on you. So you are not celebrating. પેલી beloved ને એમ હતું કે મારું ગીત ગાય, એનું ગીત જ નહોતું. ગીત તો પોતાનું જ, પોતે પોતાના વખાણ કરતા. So that becomes something. So whether you have gone deep to see that meaning of that sonnet, to understand even this logocentrism and reading absence, metaphysic of absence or not, that also can be asked, but I don't know whether all of you might be able to get to that meaning or not. Were you able to reach to the meaning? Of that sonnet? As an example of this, when you want to see this as an example, then what was your reading of that, when you have watched that video, deconstructive reading of the sonnet? When you watched this, so what was your interpretation, or is there anything that you would like to share? Yes, anybody online? Yes, yes, Khushbu, your mic is on. Yes, your mic is on. Yes. Yes, anybody would like to share what you have got as a message, ultimate message that you get? When I told you that this is how this poem was supposed to be the poem for beloved, one of the best sonnet for beloved. So when you celebrate your beloved, the lover would recite this poem and say that, well, you are the most important person in my life. You are better than the summer day. In nature, summer day is considered as the best day. આપણા તડકાઓ નહીં, ભારતના તડકાઓ સાથે આપણે કોઈ સ્ત્રીને સરખામણી કરીએ તો એ એકદમ કોપાયમાન હોય એવું લાગે. આપણે ત્યાં વૈશાખી તડકા, સમરના મે મહિનાનો તડકો હોય તો એમાં કોઈ સ્ત્રીની સાથે સરખામણી કરો તો એ ગુસ્સે થાય કે એનો મતલબ એમ કે તમે કોપાયમાન છો એવું કહો છો. But this is the western summer, so the best season, romance. And you say, shall I compare thee to summer's day? but you are better than that also. You are better than even the summer day. Summer day માં તો આવું છે તેવું છે, એ તો પછી વાદળ આવે તો થોડો ઝાંખો દિવસ થઈ જાય, તું તો હંમેશા પ્રકાશમાન હોય, તું તો ચમકતી જ હોય હંમેશા, એવા ભાવ સાથે એ કહે છે કે યુ આર ઓલવેઝ ધેર. પેલું સમર ડે નો પવન આવે તો ક્યારેક એ બહુ તીક્ષ્ણ પણ લાગે, ક્યારેક તારો તો હંમેશા વાયરો બહુ મીઠો જ હોય, એટલે તેલીને વધુ મજા આવે. So that way it is celebrating the beloved better than nature. So at one level, if you are doing eco-criticism, then also you will find a problem. કે આમાં તો કુદરતને તમે માર્જિનમાં મોકલી દીધો અને સેન્ટરમાં હ્યુમન બીંગ્સને લાવ્યા. પ્રેમિકાને વચ્ચે મધ્યમાં લાવવા માટે તમે કુદરતને તમે માર્જિનમાં હાસ્યામાં ધકેલી દીધું. એટલે ઇકો ક્રિટિક્સ પણ ગુસ્સે થાય આ પોએમ જોઈને કે તમે આ અમારા નેચરનું શું કર્યું, તમારી પ્રેમિકાના વખાણ કરવામાં તમે નેચરનું નખો જ કાઢી નાખ્યું, એવું પણ કોઈને થાય ઇકો ક્રિટિકલ પોઈન્ટ ઓફ વ્યૂ થી. એ રીતે પણ એ પ્રશ્ન ઉભો કરી શકે. પણ એ રીતે પણ ડિસેન્ટર થાય છે પેલી બિલવ્ડ. ધ બિલવ્ડ વોઝ એટ ધ સેન્ટર ઓફ ધ પોએમ. ઇકો ક્રિટિકલ રીડિંગમાં પણ ડિસેન્ટર થાય છે, એ બીજો અર્થ તો તમે વાંચી શકો ઇકો ક્રિટિકલ રીડિંગ. Because see, all these things are deconstructive. You might have seen in the last video કે deconstruction એ ઘણા બધા નવા વિચાર જુદી જુદી રીતે આપ્યા. એટલે એ જે પછીના જે વિચારો આવ્યા, ન્યૂ હિસ્ટોરિસિઝમ, ઇકો ક્રિટિસિઝમ, જેન્ડર સ્ટડીઝ, ફેમિનિઝમ, કલ્ચરલ સ્ટડીઝ, બધા જ માં ડિકન્સ્ટ્રક્શનના લોકોએ ઉપયોગ કર્યો. અને જે રીતે પહેલા વસ્તુ જોવાતી તેના કરતા જુદી રીતે જોવાની શરૂ કરી, એબ્સન્સ બધા વાંચવાની શરૂ કરી. એટલે ઇકો ક્રિટિકલિઝમ પણ જેમ આર્લે, વન એક્ઝામ્પલ વી હેવ સીન, ઇકો ફેમિનિસ્ટ શું કરે, that nature with women is a dangerous proposition. ટ્રેડિશનલ વિચારમાં કોઈ પણ સ્ત્રીને કહ્યું કે તમે કુદરત અને સ્ત્રી સાથે, તો એને મજા જ આવે કે મને કુદરત સાથે સરખાવી છે, માં પ્રકૃતિ સાથે મને સરખાવી છે, એવો એક ભાવ જાગે. પ્રકૃતિ પણ માં છે, ડિવાઇન છે, અને હું એની સાથે સરખાવું છું. પણ ઇકો ફેમિનિસ્ટ કે છે આ તો બહુ ડેન્જરસ છે, આ કમ્પેરિઝન બહુ ડેન્જરસ છે. તમે એવી અપેક્ષાઓ એને સાથે જોડીને રાખશો કે જે સ્ત્રી ક્યારેય પૂરી નહીં કરી શકે. હંમેશા આપતા જ રહેવું પડશે, હંમેશા તમારે પેલા પુરુષોનું દુઃખ દર્દ ચૂસતું જ રહેવું પડશે. તમે થાકી જશો પણ તમે ક્યારેય કમ્પ્લેન જ નહીં કરી શકો. તમે ક્યારેય કહી નહીં શકો કે આજે મારો મૂડ નથી, કારણ કે કુદરત એવું ક્યારેય ન કરે. કુદરત એ રીતે જુએ. So that is deconstructive reading of nature, connecting with womanhood. So you will say કે પ્રકૃતિ એ ભલે સ્ત્રીજન્ય શબ્દ આપણે એને આપ્યો હોય પ્રકૃતિ, પણ પ્રકૃતિને કોઈ જેન્ડર હોતું જ નથી. જો હોય તો એ પુરુષ સ્ત્રી સમાન હોય. You can read both elements, either men and women, other thing, but there is no need to connect women with nature. Nature is without gender. So why are you giving gender to something which is without that gender? The same question in divinity, when you take deconstructive, you will say that if you say that ઈશ્વર is નિરાકાર, કોઈ કહેતું નથી કે અમે ઈશ્વરને જોયો છે, કોઈએ જોયો નથી. એ કોઈ પણ ધર્મના ગુરુને લઈ લો, એને ક્યાંક અવાજ જ સાંભળ્યા છે, ક્યાંક વાદળની ગડગડાટી સાંભળી છે, ક્યાંક પેલા બુશમાં તડતડાટી થતી હોય એ સાંભળી છે, પણ કોઈએ ક્યાંય ઈશ્વરને જોયો નથી. તો પછી તમે કેમ કહો છો કે ઈશ્વર એ પુરુષ છે? Who changed the gender of God? ઈશ્વરને જ્યારે કોઈ જોયો નથી તો એને પુરુષમાં કોને રૂપાંતરિત? ક્રિશ્ચિયન ગોડ દાઢી વાળો હોય, મોટી દાઢી, એને જોઈને બીજા ઘણા પણ મોટી મોટી દાઢી રાખવા માંડે કે આપણે ઈશ્વર જેવા લાગીએ. You want to connect with divine, ઋષિ and other kinds of things. બ્રહ્મા, વિષ્ણુ, મહેશ, જે સૌથી પહેલા ઈશ્વરો છે, એ બધા પુરુષો છે. તો એ પુરુષ તમે જોયો નથી તો તમે કઈ રીતે એને ત્યાં સ્થાપી દીધો? Who has changed the gender of the God? એ ઉપર સર્ચ કરશો તો ગૂગલમાંથી ઘણું બધું જોવા મળશે. Who changed the gender? તો આવા પ્રશ્નો પહેલા કોઈ કરતા નહોતા. ડિકન્સ્ટ્રક્શન પહેલા આવા પ્રશ્નો ભાગ્યે જ લોકો કરતા કે આમાં શું કામ આપણે જોવું જોઈએ? Why we want to see these things there. So from that this poem, and when you move into this poem, what we see here is this words are to be marked. The binary opposition, the language when you make a criticism is very, very important to use. The language of deconstruction has to come in your writing. The binary opposition then is not quite as simple as it first appeared. Thou and the summer day distinguished as antithetical, now appear on the same side of a line that divides mortality from poetry. All that lives is transitory, including the beloved. Every fair from fair sometimes declines. Just like the summer day, the living object of the poet's desire will, after all, fade and die. Eternity belongs only to the poem and the poem's inscription of love. જેમ કુદરત નાશવંત છે એમ બિલવડ પણ નાશવંત છે. એટલે હવે કુદરત પેલા કુદરત અને બિલવડ આમને સામને હતા કે આ બિલવડ ને આ કુદરત છે. કુદરત તો નાશવંત છે પણ આ બિલવડ તો ઇમોર્ટલ છે. યુ આર ઇમોર્ટલાઇઝિંગ. પણ પછી એ બંને એક પક્ષમાં ચાલ્યા જાય છે, બંને એક બાજુ ચાલ્યા જાય છે. જ્યારે સામે પક્ષે બાઇનરીમાં કોણ આવે છે? પોયમ આવે છે. ત્યારે તો કે સાહિત્ય છે એ શાશ્વત છે, બાકી બધું નાશવંત છે. સાહિત્ય શાશ્વત છે કારણ સાહિત્ય જીવશે, કારણ કે સાહિત્ય જીવશે ત્યાં સુધી જ પેલી બિલવડ પણ જીવશે અને ત્યાં સુધી જ પેલું નેચર એ જીવશે જે આ પોયમમાં છે. નેચર એની રીતે રહેશે પણ નેચરને તો ઓલરેડી આપણે હાસ્યામાં ધકેલી દીધું કે આ તો નાશવંત છે, હમણાં બદલાઈ જાય. નેચરને બદલતા કઈ વાર ન લાગે. આજે સરસ મજાનો તડકો હોય, 2 કલાક પછી બધું આથમી જાય. કોઈ પણ સૂરજને આથમતા કઈ વાર ન લાગે. અને રૂપકમાં સૂરજનું ચડવું ઉતરવું, કોઈનું શાઇનિંગ થવું, કોઈનું આથમી જવું, જે આપણે જોઈએ એ બધું જ કુદરતી રૂપકો અને સતત બદલાતા જતા છે. એટલે કુદરતને તો તમે ધકેલી દીધું કે એમાં તો ઇમોર્ટાલિટી જેવું કઈ છે જ નહીં, પણ મારી બિલવડમાં છે. તો પછી બિલવડ અને નેચર એક સાથે ભેગા થઈ ગયા જ્યારે અહીંયા સાહિત્ય આવ્યું છે કે સાહિત્ય એ ઇમોર્ટલ વસ્તુ છે, એ વર્ષો સુધી જીવે અને હજારો વર્ષ સુધી કોઈ વસ્તુને જીવિત રાખે. I think you might have seen this idea about literature as immortal, or the agency which makes things immortal in Keats' ode also, ode on Grecian urn, ode on the Grecian urn. That also કે એના ગ્રેશિયન અર્ન એક કુંજ છે, એના ઉપર જે કલાકૃતિ કરવામાં આવી છે એના દ્વારા એ સમય જીવતો છે. જે સમયમાં એ કલાકૃતિથી એ બધું જીવતું રહી શકે. એટલે આર્ટ છે એ ઇમોર્ટાલિટી આપે છે. તો that is how it comes. પણ પછી now see the binary how it is changing. પછી પાછો પેલો કવિ પોતે આવે ત્યારે સાહિત્ય પણ પેલી બાજુ ચાલ્યું જાય છે. બાઇનરીમાં એ પણ અહીંયા આઈ મહત્વનો પાછો બની જાય છે અને સાહિત્યને પણ એ પેલી બાજુ કે એ તો હું લખું તો સાહિત્ય શાશ્વત થાય, પછી બીજું બધું થાય, પણ હું લખું જ નહીં તો. એટલે હું અહીંયા બહુ આય, અને એ આય વાંચવાની ચાવી તો બીજા જ શબ્દમાં પહેલી જ લાઈનમાં હતી. તો હજી સુધી અત્યાર સુધી કોઈ વાંચતા નહોતા. જ્યારે આપણે ટ્રેડિશનલ રીડિંગ કરતા હતા ત્યારે આઈ એટલો બધો મહત્વનો છે એ આપણે જોતા નથી. ત્યારે આપણે જોયું બિલવડ બહુ મહત્વની છે. પછી ઇકો ક્રિટિક આવ્યો હતો કે નહીં મારું નેચર બહુ મહત્વનું છે, એમણે એ પ્રશ્ન. પછી સાહિત્ય કરાયો હતો કે નહીં મારું સાહિત્ય બહુ મહત્વનું છે. પછી ડિકન્સ્ટ્રક્ટિવ આમાં કાંઈ મહત્વ નથી, આમાં પેલો બોલનાર જ મહત્વનો છે. એનો આઈ જ જો આમાં આઈ લખ્યો પણ છે. એટલે તમે બહારથી આઈ લખતા નથી, તમે બહારથી કોઈ શસ્ત્ર લાવીને હુમલો નથી કરતા. ઇટ ઇઝ ધેર, એ અંદર જ છે, બસ એને એ રીતે વાંચવાની જરૂર છે. And language bears within itself the necessity of its own critic. એટલે ત્યાંથી જ ઓટોમેટિક એ ડિસઇન્ટિગ્રેટ થવા માંડે. એટલે પોયમ જે બનેલી હતી એ ઓટોમેટિક ડિસ્ટ્રોય થઈ જશે, એનો અર્થ ડિસ્ટ્રોય થઈ જશે. That is how it is. So binary is not very simple in this poem as it appears. એમાં એ શબ્દોની રમત કરવાની મજા આવે, બાઇનરી ઓપોઝિશનની એ રમત કરવાની મજા આવે એવી આ પોયમ છે. And this point, the other invades the self-same. But if love and summer resembles one another, જ્યારે પ્રેમિકા અને નેચર પછી એક હાસ્યામાં ચાલ્યા જાય છે બંને. જ્યારે સાહિત્ય અને સાહિત્યકાર આ બાજુ આવીને ઉભા રહી જાય છે ત્યારે એને તમે ધકેલી દો છો. ત્યારે which alone has immortal power in contrast of writing. Writing ને જ immortal power છે. What are we to make of excess heat and cold of the summer day? જે આપણે એટ્રીબ્યુટ્સ આપેલા હતા કે સમર ડે ના એટ્રીબ્યુટ્સ, તો એ એટ્રીબ્યુટ્સ પણ પછી પ્રેમિકાને મળશે. એની સાથે જે બધા હાસ્યામાં આવ્યા છે એ બધાને એટ્રીબ્યુટ્સ મળે. When we put here dead, writing, absence, difference, પછી ત્યાં women મૂકીએ તો એ બધા જ બેડ ના કે ડેવિલ ના એટ્રીબ્યુટ્સ women ને પણ આપો છો. આ બધું પ્યોરિટી, પેલી બાજુ ઇમ્પ્યોરિટી, તો એ ઇમ્પ્યોરિટી પણ તમે women ને આપો છો અને મેન ને પ્યોરિટી પણ આપો છો. All attributes go together when you divide it into binaries. So this also that એ બધા જ attributes પછી પેલી beloved ને પણ મળી જશે, summer day ના attributes. Does the sonnet imply that love too is very rarely in practice just right? કે પ્રેમ પણ બહુ ભાગ્યે જ સાચો હોય, એમાં સ્વાર્થ રહેલો હોય છે. પ્રેમમાં પણ સ્વાર્થ અને ગણતરીઓ ખૂબ જ હોય. અને નાઉ અગેન ઇફ યુ સી કે સ્ત્રીઓ હોય એ ઇમોશનલી ડિસિઝન લેતા હોય અને પુરુષો રેશનલી વિચારતા હોય. એટલે લગ્ન વિશે એક બાબત આવે તો સ્ત્રી પ્રેમને પેલું પ્રાધાન્ય આપે. આમ જો તો એવું ન હોય. સ્ત્રી એમ જોઈ કે નોકરી શું કરે છે, પગાર કેટલો છે, એ પહેલા, પછી પ્રેમ તો થઈ જશે. નહીં તો પ્રેમમાં શું ખાવું પીવું, પછી આપણે ટીવી ન હોય, એકતા કપૂરની સિરિયલ ન હોય, તો પછી એ પ્રેમને કરવો શું? એટલે પૈસા જોઈએ. that is what this heroines of Jane Austen also are known for. એ પણ એ ગણતરી કરે અમીર છે કે નહીં, પૈસા વાળો છે કે નહીં. તો women are also calculating. એ પણ બરાબર ગણતરી કરીને ચાલે કે ભાઈ આપણે તેની સાથે જીવન કાઢવાનું છે, એની આવક કેટલી છે, તેના વગર કેમ જીવી શકાશે. So that is કે love in practice is rarely right, and the rough winds that shake the darling birds are they perhaps sensually attractive or at least tempestuous element passion that makes love itself anything but temporary. The other invades the self same. એટલે આજે પ્રેમિકા અને કુદરત આમને સામને હતા. હવે જ્યારે એક બાજુ આવી ગયા ત્યારે પ્રેમિકાના જે સારા તત્વો કે કુદરતના જે ખરાબ તત્વો હતા એ એકબીજા ઉપર હુમલો કરે છે. That is why it is said the other invades the self same. એટલે મારી અંદરનું જ રહેલું અધરનું તત્વ હવે મારા ઉપર હુમલો કરે છે. અને this other is to be understood carefully with capital O. Tomorrow we will see this. What is this capital O? Other with capital O. What is Lacanian concept? Lacanian concept. અને Lacanian concept ને જુલિયા ક્રિસ્ટેવા કઈ રીતે આગળ વધારે છે, strangers to ourselves. But this is that the other invades the self same. The basic point is that earlier I was seeing that I am this, that is that. પછી અમે બંને એક બાજુ ચાલ્યા ગયા તો ત્યારે પછી એનું જે ખરાબીપણું હતું એ મારા ઉપર હુમલો કરે છે, અથવા એ મારું જ અંદરનું હતું જે હું બહાર જતો. એ ખરાબીપણું મારી અંદર જ હતું, હવે જે મારા ઉપર એટેક કરી રહ્યું છે. એટલે પેલી બિલવડમાં કુદરતના જે તત્વો હતા એ હતા જ, એ નાશવંત કુદરતની હતી એમાં હતી. નાઉ that the other invades the self same. This sentence is to be understood properly to understand deconstruction. તો જે ભાષામાં સમજાય કે એક જ ભાષામાં રહેલો શબ્દ કઈ રીતે એ હુમલો કરે એના જ અર્થ ઉપર, કઈ રીતે પેલો આઈ એ એના જ અર્થ ઉપર હુમલો કરે અને એ આખી પોયમને તોડી નાખે. એ પોયમને કે જે આઈ એમ કહેતો હતો કે હું પોયમ બિલવડ માટે લખું છું, પણ પછી એ પોયમ એના ઉપર જ બની જાય. That is attacking the self same. The qualities of the repudiated summer day return to inhabit the romance. They seem designate to define by contrast there. So what exactly then does sonnet 18 claim? આ બધે ડિસ્કશન કરતા કરતા આપણે લોગોસેન્ટ્રિઝમ, ફોનોસેન્ટ્રિઝમ, મેટાફિઝિક્સ ઓફ પ્રેઝન્સ, ડિકન્સ્ટ્રક્ટિવ રીડિંગ એ કરતા કરતા તો અલ્ટિમેટલી વોટ ઇઝ ધેટ સોનેટ 18 ટ્રાઇંગ ટુ ટેલ અસ? શું કહેવાનો પ્રયાસ કરે છે? You are better than summer's day since you want fade that I have written this poem. You that is beloved. શું કામ? કારણ કે મેં હવે પોયમ લખી નાખી એટલે મારું એ લખવું. You are mortal like summer's day and want fade if and only if I immortalize you in my poem. Is that what the poem is trying to say? That I am the one who is immortalizing you? Who is in control here? Now the question is coming to who is controlling who? The lovely but mutable object of desire, or the desiring but life-giving poet? Or is the sonnet a dramatization of a miniature power struggle? શું એક પાવર સ્ટ્રગલ ચાલી રહ્યો છે પ્રેમી પ્રેમિકા વચ્ચે અને બીજા અનેક રૂપકોની આસપાસમાં પણ? રૂપકો આસપાસમાં લડી ઝઘડી રહ્યા છે, કોણ કોના ઉપર કંટ્રોલ કરે? એક મિનિએચર પાવર સ્ટ્રગલ is going on. Is there a kind of a power politics unfolding here in this sonnet? The sequence of implied threats and promises that goes on just below the surface of so many passionate relations. અનેક પ્રકારના આવા સંબંધોમાં આવી એક લડાઈ સતત ચાલતી રહેતી હોય છે કે કંટ્રોલ કરવાની લડાઈ, એના પર કાબુ કરવું. અને એ પ્રેમમાં પણ હોય. પ્રેમમાં ભાષામાં એમ બોલાતો હોય કે હું એને તાબે થઈને રહું, પણ કોઈ તાબે થઈને ન રહે. બધાને આધિપત્ય જમાવવું, બધાને એમ હોય કે હું કહું એમ એ કરે. એ પછી પ્રેમિકાને એમ હોય કે મારો પ્રેમી હું કહું એમ કરે, પ્રેમીને એમ હોય કે મારી પ્રેમિકા હું કહું એમ કરે, પછી લગ્ન થાય પછી પણ બંનેને એમ હોય કે ના મારું ઘરમાં ચાલે, હું કહું એમ થાય છે. What is this? This is power struggle. This is miniature power struggle that is found in all relations, all kinds of relations માં આ સતત ચાલતું રહે. એ મિત્રો હોય તો એમાં પણ ચાલતું કે મારે એનું જ કયું કરવાનું, મારું કયું ક્યારેય ન કરે. એ ક્યારેક ને ક્યારેક મનમાં વિચાર આવી જ જાય કે ના આવે એવું બને નહીં. માનો શું આ વસ્તુ જ આ પોયમમાં છે? આ જ સ્ટ્રગલ, આ જ સંઘર્ષ આ પોયમ કહેવા માંગે છે. ઇટ મીન્સ that all relations are relations of conflict. આપણે કહીએ સંબંધો તો બહુ મીઠા સંબંધો છે, પણ ડિકન્સ્ટ્રક્શનિસ્ટ કે એવું કઈ મીઠા જેવું કઈ હોતું નથી. બધામાં એક કડવાશ હોય, આપણે છુપાવી રાખીએ. છેક તમે ખોતરો એટલે દેખાવા માંડે કે અંદર તમે સતત દ્વંદમાં છો. કોઈને કોઈ પ્રકારના એક સતત દ્વંદ એ સતત ચાલુ રહેતા હોય છે. Exactly how idealist is this lyrical text? What is the truth of sonnet? આમાંનું સત્ય શું? Undecidable. You can't say. આટલા બધા અર્થોમાં exactly sonnet શું કહેવા માંગે, exactly તમે કાંઈ કહી ન શકો. It is undecidability. So from here we also enter into free play of meaning. Undecidability, જ્યાં અર્થ એક ન હોય એને undecidability પર આપણે જોઈ શકીએ. So I hope this will help in understanding today's concern, this poem also as an example. So every day we are seeing couple of examples also. So if you are able to connect with the idea and the example properly, then whatever you will read or study, you will be able to do deconstructive reading also. So try to connect both the things, that there is an idea and then there is an example that is also going parallel in our discussion. So tomorrow we will take third concern, and that is about free play of meaning and the otherness, the concept of otherness that we have seen here, that and free play of meaning, that we will discuss in our tomorrow's discussion. Okay? So we end our session here. Okay?